Good day, class 11. Let's continue with chapter 2. We have seen that the judiciary has the power and responsibility to protect fundamental rights. The executive and legislative actions can be declared illegal by the judiciary when if these laws violate the laws made by Parliament, violate the fundamental rights or restrict them in an unreasonable manner. Fundamental rights are not absolute or unlimited. The government can put reasonable restrictions on the exercise of our fundamental rights. Sometimes these rights can be suspended, especially during an emergency or maybe an external attack on the country. We move on to the first fundamental right, right to equality. Let us understand this concept with two examples. When you give examples, then you can understand a concept better. The first example deals with a boy named Swadesh Kumar. He is visiting his village and he takes a friend along. And as they walk along the village road, they come up to a village roadside hotel. And they decide to have a cup of tea. So they go in. And of course, Swadesh, being a local boy, he was known to the shopkeeper. But the shopkeeper wanted to know the name of his friend. Usually the name or the surname will tell you exactly what caste the person belongs to. And this is why the shopkeeper wanted to know the name of Swadesh's friend, because he wanted to know what caste he was. Anyway, there was no problem with that. They sat down. But see the difference. Swadesh was served tea in a nice mug, while his friend was given tea in an earthen pot or an earthen cup. You know why? Because his name suggested that he was a Dalit. The second example. An order was served to 4 newsreaders of a television channel that they no longer read the news on screen. These are all women who were above the age of 40 years. But there was something very peculiar. There were 2 male newsreaders above the same age. They were not barred from presenting the news on the television channel. Now, these two examples are of course imaginary. They are imaginary situations. They did not occur, or they were not true, but they were just imaginary. But remember, this can happen and it does happen. Right? The question here now arises, do you think they involve violation of fundamental rights? These are examples of discrimination. In the first example, the discrimination is based on caste, while in the second example, it is discrimination based on gender, male and female. So, the right to equality tries to do away with such and other discriminations. It provides for equal access to public places like shops, hotels, places of entertainment, etc. There cannot be any discrimination in this access on the basis of caste, color, sex, religion, or even a place of birth. This right is very important because our society did not practice equal access in the past. Now, if you read history, especially during the later Vedic period, you will find that the caste system became very rigid. If you compare the caste system of the early Vedic period and the later Vedic period, you would come to know the difference. So it became very rigid, very strict. And therefore, equal access was not practiced in the past. Give me one example. One example is the Shudras, who were at the bottom of society. They did menial jobs. Where did they stay? Where did they live? They lived outside the city. They did not have access to wells that were actually in the high caste areas. According to your history book, if you read history in class 6, 7, you will come to know that when a Shudra entered the city, he was supposed to bang on a piece of wood or a piece of tin to make a noise, so that the high caste people, the Brahmins especially, would come to know that that particular person is coming down that way, and therefore it was a warning, and that person of the high caste would change or would walk away, go further away. So all these type of practices were there. And that is why it says here, our society did not practice equal access in the past. This is the meaning of it, the examples that I have given you. The practice of untouchability is one of the cruelest acts against humanity and inequality. This untouchability has been abolished under the right to equality. Thus, the right to equality strives to make India a true democracy How? By ensuring a sense of equality, of dignity and status among all its citizens. The Constitution gives every Indian citizen a dignity, a status. All are equal. You go to universal adult franchise. The Indian Constitution states that every citizen of India above the age of 18 have the right to vote, whether he is poor, of the middle class, or even very rich, whether he is very highly educated or even if he is illiterate. Where voting rights are concerned, the Indian citizens have the same dignity and status. Read the preamble to the Constitution of India. You will find two things mentioned about equality. First, equality of status. And second, equality of opportunity. What is the meaning of equality of opportunity? Equality of opportunity means that all sections of society enjoy equal opportunities. But we have various kinds of social inequalities. So, what does equal opportunities mean? Here, the Constitution clarifies that the government can implement special schemes and measures for improving the conditions of certain sections of society. We have often read in advertisements for jobs and admissions where it is mentioned reservations for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and other backward classes. Have you wondered why there are reservations, even if we follow the principle of equality? Take Article 16, Part 4 of the Constitution, and it clearly states that a policy like reservation will not be seen as a violation of the right to equality. So reservation should not be taken as a violation of the right to equality. And they have reservations because these are the backward classes, and therefore we have to lift these classes so that they come in power. And then they can enjoy equal status. We move on to the right to freedom. In a democracy, the two rights, equality and freedom, are very important, very essential. Both go hand in hand. Now, what does liberty mean? Liberty means freedom. Freedom of thought, expression and action. Students, do not misunderstand this concept, which means a citizen cannot do anything that he or she desires. If this was granted, then a large number of citizens will not be able to enjoy their freedom. If people did what they just felt like because they have the right to freedom, because they have the right to liberty, they can do anything what they feel like. And therefore, other people will not be able to enjoy their freedom. Therefore, freedoms are defined in such a manner that every person will enjoy his or her freedom without threatening the freedom of others. Now let us move into some more details, like the right to life and personal liberty. This is the most important right among the rights to freedom. No citizen can be denied his or her life except by procedure as laid down under the law. What does this mean? It means no citizen can be arrested without being told the reasons for such an arrest. If arrested, the person has the right to defend himself or herself by a lawyer of his or her choice. Within 24 hours, it is compulsory for the police to take the accused to the nearest magistrate. And remember, he is not a part of the police, and he will decide if the arrest is justified or not. Now, all this has to be done within 24 hours. If a person is accused of something, the police, when they go to arrest him, they have to tell him or her why they are arresting him or her, the reason. And once he or she is arrested, within 24 hours, he or she must be produced in front of the magistrate, and he will decide whether the arrest is justified or not. Various judgments of the Supreme Court have expanded the scope of this right. For example, the court has ruled that this right also includes right to live with human dignity, free from exploitation. The court has held that right to shelter and livelihood is also included in the right to life. The next one, preventive detention. In ordinary circumstances, a person would be arrested after he or she has reportedly committed some offense. So only when you commit an offense, break the law, that you can be arrested. However, there are certain exceptions. What is preventive detention? Sometimes a person is arrested simply out of an apprehension that he or she is likely to engage in some unlawful activity and imprisoned for some time without following the above mentioned procedure. This is preventive detention. If the government feels that a person can be a threat to law and order or to the peace and security of the nation, it can arrest or detain that person. This preventive detention only looks like an effective tool for the government to deal with antisocial elements, but has often been misused by the government. In fact, there is a clear tension between the right to life and personal liberty, and the provision for preventive detention.